It's your man Fly back and do another banger. Finna bang it out for y'all today. Let's get it bopping.
Really be leaving San Antonio anytime soon. Now, is that me exhibiting a case of confirmation bias? Probably, considering the preconceived notions I already have of First Take as a show, Stephen A. Smith as a reporter, and most importantly, of the San Antonio Spurs as an organization. I mean, players simply just don't want out of that situation. This idea is extremely rare. Look, the reports were that Kawhi Leonard was disconnected, distant from the organization. So we seeked a second medical opinion outside of the Spurs staff. So what? A minor road bump, minor turbulence, not the type of incident that destroys a relationship, not something that can't be hashed out and resolved. Plus the fact that these reports are months old, but once they surfaced, Stephen A. and Jalen Rose thought, hey, this is the perfect opportunity. Let's stretch this thing out. Now he wants out, and he's been wanting out for some time. That's just how I see it. I mean, come on, man. It seems pretty out there. Now, all that being said, there's a somewhat valid case for the opposing perspective, too. I mean, you got to think about why Kawhi hasn't addressed these rumors publicly and shot them down yet. Pops made a statement, but on the front of Kawhi himself, we haven't heard a peep. But is that enough to classify these rumors as true? Absolutely not. Suspicion is all it is. We've seen countless instances of players trolling the media through this type of behavior. Cryptic tweets, obscure Instagram likes, irrelevant follows or unfollows that has us running around in circles all day. Instances where guys like Kyrie come out and claim to be believers in ridiculous trending theories, where he adamantly claims that flat earth is a fact and stands firmly behind that statement, stays true to that one troll for so long that you start to believe that he really believes that shit. I mean, the shit's just funny. Like, if I had the influence, the reach that these players do, there's not a doubt in my mind that I wouldn't do the same. If I was Kawhi in this instance, why not mess with the masses? Why not let the Clay Allens of the world go crazy with a multi-video series on all the intricate possibilities on the 5% off chance that this isn't a false report? Now again, there's no supporting evidence to these claims, but there is some decent reasoning. Regardless of the situation surrounding Kawhi's injury, the Spurs have sort of hit a wall. Despite being one of the most highly touted franchises in the game, despite trying their hand at pretty much every suitable big name year after year, they haven't been able to land any other than the mostly underwhelming LaMarcus Aldridge in this Kawhi era. Now, I say underwhelming considering the level of weight his name brought at the time compared to the Chris Pauls of the market. But to be fair, in terms of his play this season, he has been anything but underwhelming. Nonetheless, they need more. They're the type of organization most similar to Golden State, yet they haven't been able to make any real pushes towards joining the quote-unquote super team club of today's NBA. Their big acquisition last summer was Rudy Gay, while they let go of a young and promising Jonathan Simmons. This is with Pau Gasol willingly waiving his contract in order to give them the flexibility to land a big name, yet they didn't, and the money just went right back to him. So I can definitely see this as being frustrating in the sense that you are right there. Your expectations are so high, but things aren't panning out that way. And though they can compete with Golden State when healthy, with the aging core pieces of Tony P and Pau, and most importantly Pop's rumored soon retirement, they are not built to last. That's where the suspicion mostly originates, for myself at least, that there may be more than a little bit of turbulence going down behind the scenes here. That being said, Kawhi absolutely does not strike me as the type of dude to not give him another chance. I mean, again, this is the San Antonio Spurs we're talking about. If DeMarcus Cousins, one of the biggest hotheads in the league, can give Sacramento chance after chance after chance, is Kawhi really going to walk out on the Spurs at the first sign of trouble? No, doubt it. Not gonna happen. When a player wants out, and I mean truly wants out, done deal, it's over. Or vice versa, when an organization wants to cut ties with a player, when we hear the story, we hear the story in full. We don't normally get hints and bits and pieces of speculation along the way. Jimmy Butler, Paul George, yes, there were bits and pieces of speculation, but the speculation was when they'd finally be gone, not if they would. We all knew that these terms had an expiration date. We knew all along that Cousins wasn't going to retire a king. Kyrie's feelings had been bubbling under the surface for over a year before we found out, but the story broke at once. When a player wants out, like truly wants out, when they have no chances left to offer, they'll make it known. I mean, to offer a little bit of perspective, the other day I read a report about how Kyrie had threatened to claim injury and sit out the whole season if he hadn't been traded. That's how diabolical these dudes can be when push comes to shove. So yes, it's possible that there are ideas brewing in Kawhi's head, but I think it takes something major to truly trigger those feelings. Something like, I don't know, maybe when push comes to shove. So yes, it's possible that there are ideas brewing in Kawhi's head, but I think it takes something major to truly trigger those feelings. Something like, I don't know, maybe the coach that brought him from nothing to something's retirement. Yeah, I could see that having this effect. For that reason, with the hypothetical super teams listed in this video, I looked at two possible routes. The first being a trade before this year's deadline following a request made by Kawhi behind closed doors, very unlikely. Or two, a trade out of fear that Kawhi will be lost with zero compensation as a result of no commitment made to re-sign. For those wondering, Kawhi has a player option in the summer of 2019, which he will undoubtedly waive in favor of the new max he deserves. So this could happen two ways, through sign and trade in the offseason or a mid-season deal if they're that sure he'll be out the door the following summer. Or even he could just walk out with no compensation at all, though that's very unlikely with an organization like San Antonio. So scenario number one, the Minnesota Timberwolves, a prospect that most have understandably overlooked, but one that does make a serious amount of sense if you think about it. What do these young Wolves need? Defense, no question about it. What is Kawhi? No worse than the second best defender in the league. It's an easy concept to digest. Not only the defense, but the veteran presence he could bring to the youthful group could be extremely impactful, and the philosophy Thibodeau brings fits his mold perfectly. I mean, he's basically a guaranteed solution to all the problems they hope Jimmy Butler would solve immediately with that addition. The question is, what does Minnesota have that could attract the Spurs? Now, if we're talking this season, a straight-up swap for Jimmy Butler makes sense. But again, it's extremely unlikely that Kawhi has already given up on making it work in San Antonio. Next season, however, the asking price for Kawhi could vary greatly depending on how desperate of a position he potentially puts the Spurs in. I mean, you look at the Pacers, who gave up a superstar for two prospects with extremely little value at the time. No one knew that Victor Oladipo was going to become the most improved player by far. So a package centered around Wiggins and Teague could be the best option that they're presented with. Teague gives them a solid point post Tony Parker, and a 22-year-old Wiggins gives them a piece to build the next contending core around. For Andrew's sake, there's even incentive. Not that it matters, but the man has struggled to live up to those lofty expectations placed on him from before he even committed to a university. I'm certain Pop could work wonders with him, slap some defensive intensity and proper shot selection into him. Tyus Jones, Nemanja Bjelica could be nice incentive pieces. The Spurs system could have Nemanja looking like Dirk off the bench, and you know that Pop loves those stretch bigs. Taj Gibson, Jang fit the Spurs system nice. Either could be a part of the full package. Maybe you drop Teague, you throw in some of these sweeteners instead. Either way, something could definitely be worked out here. If the asking price is that high that you gotta give up Butler, on God, I do it without a second thought. Just the prospect of a Kawhi-Towns tandem has me eyes wide. The Philadelphia 76ers, another idea that hasn't been floated out there yet, but why? We talk about LeBron to Philly all the time, and he's not even nearly as good a fit as Kawhi would be. Trade package is simple: Markelle Fultz for the future and JJ Redick's expiring contract. You pair that up with one of those high-risk, very high-reward protected draft picks that Philly owns, one or two of their own first-rounders, and you got a nice package. Maybe throw in a TJ McConnell or a Covington, maybe even Dario Saric to close the deal out. There's a lot of different combinations that could appease these Spurs. And now think about this. Simmons mans the point. You got a scary defense with Kawhi and Embiid on the perimeter and on the interior. And if you find a couple shooters, you can score from literally anywhere on the court at literally any time. And if you thought the Wizards would stick around a while, Ben Simmons is 21, Embiid 23. Just let that sink in. Alright, here's one out the left field. How about a Giannis-Kawhi duo? Best bet is that your first thought is redundancy. Milwaukee does not need any more wings. What they need is help on the interior, and they need that desperately. But their needs don't disqualify this superstar pairing as a tremendous fit. Look at Giannis's game and look at Kawhi's, and realize the soul-shattering black hole of a perimeter defense that would create. Combined with either Bledsoe or Brogdon or Middleton, this is the type of defense that could fare better at stopping the Golden State Warriors trifecta of lethal scorers better than any other defense we've seen trying to get a grasp on that handful. thus far. And don't think for a second that Kawhi wouldn't help shore up that interior defense in a major way too. Alongside Giannis, you got two of the best help defenders in the league. They'd have absolutely no problem defending the transition game in these fast-paced matchups with the length, speed, athleticism, and anticipation that this tandem possesses together. So it's a double-headed defensive beast, man. And offensively, I can't imagine a struggle with Kawhi moving off the ball while you run the offense through Giannis. He's efficient off catch and shoot opportunities and adept at finding the open lane. And another thing concerning the defense, y'all remember that insane phenomenon last season, Kawhi isolation, where Kawhi's defense was so great that it was literally hurting the Spurs? Opposing teams were just ISOing Kawhi's matchup out in the corner and playing 4-on-4 to take Kawhi out the game. Well, I can tell you one thing. It won't be easy to ISO two guys out. You just won't have the spacing there. Now, there are many ways the Bucks could go about this. They could trade developed star talent or undeveloped youngsters with potential, or a combination of both, with Maker, Brogdon, possibly even Jabari, depending on the circumstances. They got a few different enticing young assets that any team sending out their franchise player would naturally gravitate towards. Maker was a guy that a lot of us expected to really break out this season, but he's not just having a sophomore slump, man. The dude's in the sophomore dump. And he's had a couple decent performances this month, but the consistency has been non-existent. Now, that being said, the dude is 20 years old, and it's easy to forget that. I mean, he looks like a grown man. You look into his eyes, and you can just see this man's lived some life. But at that age, with that size, those tools, if you're writing him off as a bust already, then you don't have an ounce of optimism in you. And these are exactly the type of players that Pop has transformed time and time again. So I can see the Spurs taking a gamble on the man. Not much to put in the pot for the payout that could be had. And next, 3 short words is all you need, man. Brogdon under Pop, period. Or the Spurs could go the proven route. Not that Brogdon hasn't proven he's a solid player in this league, but he's not what Bledsoe is at this point already. Bledsoe and Middleton in return for, say, Patty Mills. Maybe trade Jabari next season if he recovers, re-signs, and performs well. I'm pretty confident the two franchises could work something out here that pleases both sides. OKC. Russ and Kawhi just sounds like so much damn fun, man. Maybe one of the only rare pieces that have meshed well enough with the often polarizing Russell Westbrook to realistically contend consistently together. That being said, is it attainable? You can't really sign and trade Paul George unless the Spurs somehow work out a way to entice perhaps LeBron next to him. Otherwise, why accept that situation as PG? Though there is some potential here in a Steven Adams for Pal swap. Other than that, there's Patterson, who's having a terrible season, I guess, with a likely prospect that he could revive his career in the Spurs system. Then you got Jeremiah Grant, potentially in a sign and trade. Other than that, the team doesn't really have any assets. It'd probably take like all their draft picks, if even that could get it done, since most of which are pretty heavily protected. So it'd take a lack of competition on the market pretty much at all, which is unlikely to say the least. San Antonio does not want a post-prime Melo at $26 million a year, though I guess next season he could serve as a large cap relief in an expiring contract, though I'm not sure if that's what they'll even be after, since they won't have all that much other than coaching and franchise history going for them when they're talking about attracting free agents. Nonetheless, the man's probably not going to waive his no-trade clause. That attracting PG to the Spurs with LeBron idea, that makes much more sense coming into fruition somewhere like LA, where the Lakers could send multiple young budding stars like Lonzo, Ingram, etc. in exchange for Kawhi. So I can't really see this going down unless Russ is involved, which sort of ruins the whole idea. Though I will say a George-Kawhi pairing would be a beastly two-way duo to build around. All they need is a solid playmaker, and that's a contender in itself. And how about this season's surprise group, the Toronto Raptors, adding another dimension to their game? They got the pieces to build one of the best packages here. Multiple young, bargain assets, the types of players San Antonio thrives off of. Pop could work magic with these prospects. Pirtle, OG Anunoby, Siakam, DeLon Wright, Lucas Nogueira. Plus, Jonas Valanciunas is a beautiful trade chip, about $15 million a year, locked up for the next 3 with a player option on the 4th. He's cheaper than Pau, brings more production, brings a more needed game, much younger And there's Ibaka who could be involved. There's even potential for a Lowry-Kawhi swap with a couple young assets and picks as sweeteners, though age is a negative factor there for San Antonio. And call me crazy, but I'd have no problem sending out DeRozan if that's the only way. Toronto has a ton of flexibility like Boston, though Boston would be a better fit. And more on that soon, because I decided to do this video a bit differently this time around. We actually got 10 potential teams in total, plus one bonus, which I'm fairly certain you'll all be pumped for. But I didn't want to stretch this thing out too long, and I didn't want to cut it short either. We got a lot to talk about, so I'm going to be releasing a total of 3 to 4 videos in the next day or so to complete this one-time series up. So make sure you got post notifications on for that, and by the end of it, I want you to let me know what you think about this format, if I should mess with it more in the future. As always, leave your thoughts, feelings, perspectives in the comment section down below. Out of all the teams discussed today, which one is the best fit and which has potential for the best trade package for San Antonio to receive in return? Leave your answers in the comments. If you want to throw out some new ideas there, feel free. I will say this. Yes, Houston and Boston will be included in these.
Wow, that was real interesting. Banged out another one today. Let's see how we doing it. Peace.